Aiden, I'm going to start. Unless anybody has an objection, we'll just get going. Good evening and welcome to the August 18th meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. As usual, I have to read the governor's statement on remote meeting. Bear with me. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Members of the public wishing to participate from their remote location are encouraged to email their questions to planning@town.westborough.ma.us. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. The meeting can be viewed on Verizon Channel 24 and Charter Channel 191, or live streamed online at westboroughtv.org. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So, I'm not sure I'm still on. Okay, good. All right, I found you good. Sorry. So I don't see anyone from Ruggles Rugged Trails. So you want to do the A&Rs first, Jim, and we'll see if somebody joins.
Sure, that would be great. For the record, Jim Robbins, Town Planner. The first A&R that we have in front of us this evening is at 42 Milk Street, and most everyone knows that address as the address for the Westborough Fire Department and the fire station, along with its parking lot. And as you know, the town purchased this property. It used to be called the VARC property. And as you look at the plan here, the VARC site is where the building is today, and the building outline is shown in the northern portion of the plan. Southern portion of the plan contains the old fire station, which is now a parking lot. The parcels were combined. We call this an amalgamation plan, and combined into one site so that we could build the fire station. This plan was previously approved by the planning board last year, and then was sent to land court and to the town council to be reviewed. It took a while to get the area of use limitation circumstances resolved. And so the plan never got recorded. And as you know, the Registry of Deeds requires no more than 6 months from the date of approval and endorsement to recording. And since the plan extended beyond the 6 months, the registry would no longer accept the plan. So you have a new plan in front of you this evening. The area of use limitation and the land court cases have been resolved, so that's no longer a holdup for the plan. If the board approves the plan this evening, and I recommend you do, since it's the exact same plan that you approved last year, I would get this back to the town manager and she would have council record it.
All right, any questions for Jim from the board? If you just speak up. Okay, I don't hear any questions, so I will make a motion to approve the amalgamation and what is that, AUL? AUL plan of land at 42 Milk Street.
Dated 8/12/20.
Dated 8/12/2020 for the town of Westborough.
Second that, Mark.
Okay, any discussion of the motion? Okay, all those in favor, I'll do a roll call as usual. Jim Ball?
Yes.
Hazel?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. And I don't think Paris is on, so that'll be 4-0. Okay. Jim, do you want to turn to the next A&R?
Sure. The next plan is identified as 26 Lackey Street, and Kristen will bring the plan up for you shortly. This is a very simple A&R. And if you could enlarge that slightly, Kristen, just so we can see some of the details here. And I've enlarged it on my screen so I can see it a little better. So 26 Lackey Street is shown on the plans as Lot 1A. And they're giving a portion of their land called Parcel A to the abutting property to increase the size of that lot. There's no change in frontage. There's no change in access. There's no creation of new lots. As a matter of fact, the addition to the lot that's receiving the property would still not be subdividable. It won't be large enough, and it wouldn't have adequate frontage for a second lot. So this is merely a property transfer between two abutting parcels. And it's pretty straightforward and simple. We've received the required fee for the plan, that being $200 for submittal and $50 per new lot created. And as you know, the board's policy is that whenever you move a common lot line, you have two new parcels. So the total filing fee is $300. $200 filing fee, $50 per new lot. Two new lots, that's another $100. That's where the $300 comes from. So I've reviewed the plan and I think it's fine. I'd recommend you approve it.
Any questions for Jim on this A&R plan? To speak up. Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to endorse a plan of land for Martha S. Hinman dated July 22nd, 2020 at 26 Lackey Street.
Second that, Mark.
Jim Ball seconded. Any discussion of the motion? Okay. Again, I'll do a roll call. Tim Taylor.
Yes, Mark, I approve.
Okay, Jim.
Yes.
Hazel.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That's 4-0 to endorse that plan. So procedurally, Jim, you signed both of those, right? We don't have to sign those?
That's correct. And I have the originals in my office that I will sign them tomorrow and make sure that the town manager gets the fire station plan immediately.
Okay. So I don't see anyone still on for Rugged Trail. So why don't we do the update on Pulte Homes sidewalk on Lyman Street?
So I will start
Jim
this
Bowler update.
just to give you a little, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Jim Robbins, town planner. So I'll start this just to give you a little background. As you know, the planning board approved a special permit for the Lake Chauncey development, which is Pulte Homes, 700 age-restricted condominiums at the property that the town surplused on Lake Chauncey. Part of that approval from the planning board was that the developer, Pulte Homes, provides sidewalk from the Lake Chauncey property all the way to Lyman Street's intersection with Route 9. As the sidewalk proceeds down Lyman Street, the original plan showed the sidewalk changing to the opposite side of the street, which would be the east side at approximately the Hadley building, just past the Hadley building, and proceeding on the east side to the beach parking lot. And then at that time, switching back over to the beach side, the western side of the street, and then down towards Route 9. During the planning board's review and approval of the sidewalk plan, we gave the authority for the final design to the town engineer and the public works department. It was found by Pulte when they did an examination of the layout of the road, they could actually continue the sidewalk all on the western side of Lyman Street from Lake Chauncey and the current sidewalk leaving the former state hospital site all the way to the town beach. So they wouldn't need to cross Lyman Street, and that made it much easier and a much better design, probably a little more expensive for the developer, but a much safer alternative for pedestrians or anyone using the sidewalk because they wouldn't need to cross Lyman Street. And as you know, Lyman Street's a very busy street where people drive over the speed limit. So this is a much safer alternative. The sidewalk design, however, does impact the front yard of some of the residential abutters. And so we held a site walk last Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m., at which time the developer's engineer, their landscape architect, myself, the director of public works, and abutting residents attended this to see how much the sidewalk would affect the front of their property. Now, I want to make a point here that even though it affects the front of their property along the street line, it is not on private property. It's still within the road layout. And I think it's appropriate this time because I had another planning board member there, Representative Ball, James Ball was there with me. I'd like to ask him for his impressions of how the meeting went.
I'd unmute there, Jim. Sure. So we had myself, Jim Gobes, the neighbor to the north of me, and then Paul Lattraverse was there on behalf of the 4 condo owners on the other side. And I think it was a very productive meeting. They did the week before stake out, stake out the proposed location of the sidewalk. And then they also marked, I believe, Jim, it was 11 trees that they've determined that will have to come down. They're substantial trees. And their roots and or mainly the root systems were going to come into where the sidewalk will be. So we did a walk, and along the property to the north that connects to the existing sidewalk, not many issues because it's very flat. His front yard right out to the street is flat. And so it was fairly straightforward there. In front of my property and in front of the condominiums, the biggest issue is that there's a very high berm and to the front yards that are elevated, I'd say 3 to 4 feet at the most, probably, Jim, if I'm correct. And so the discussion really was about how do we mitigate that? And they were proposing a slope of 2 to 1, and then that they were just going to seed that. And our concerns were that slope is not maintainable, that you're not going to be able to mow it. And so I think the greatest part of the conversation was around how do we work on that? How do we fix that? What were our options? And it varied depending on the property and the slope. And so we had a lot of, I think, pretty good conversations about that, and left it such that they would come back for a follow-on meeting to address how we could handle some of those issues. And so I think it was very helpful. It was very, everyone was there. They gave us some, an opportunity and marked it out in advance. But I still think there's some work to do to determine how they're going to stabilize the slopes and, frankly, not have such a steep slope. And we're expecting them to come back with some thoughts on that. Is that a fair summary, Jim?
I think that's a very good summary. Thank you. As you know, the special permit, as I said earlier, gave the authority for the final design to the town engineer and the Department of Public Works. The DPW director, Chris Payne, as we both said, was present at the meeting. He liked the design, but as you know, always the devil is in the details. So the engineer representing Pulte Homes from Vanessa Hagen-Bruslin will provide, from Bowler Engineering, will provide a new plan for the planning board to see. Even though technically your approval doesn't require that you vote to approve this plan, Pulte is requesting that you do. So I think it's fair, since the applicant will be spending a significant amount of money, and since the plan will deviate from the approved design in the special permit approval, I think it would be appropriate to have it come to the planning board at the very least for discussion and at the request of the developer for approval. Then the plans can be added officially to the special permit plans, at both the Department of Public Works, the town clerk, and the planning board. I think it's a good idea. And I commend the residents for taking the time to work with Pulte. And I commend Pulte for wanting to get the planning board's approval. We expect to see them in September at the September 15th meeting.
Are there questions from the board on this? Kim, no. Hazel, anything? No. No, have
The
you on?
only, yeah, and this is slightly off the subject, but Jim, you mentioned that Pulte's sort of at a stop at the moment because of the virus and they're not building. Are they continuing building at the moment?
So they are pouring the foundation and working on the frame of the second they've poured the foundation. They're working on the framing of the second building. I don't want to say work is stopped, but work is moving extremely slowly because many of their subcontractors are not coming back to work as yet.
Jim, just to clarify on that, the second building exterior is completely finished. They're working on the interior finishes in that second building, and they have sold a number of those units. But your point is correct. They're struggling to get the contractors to come back.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
So I have some questions on this. You know, when we approved this, I was under the impression that that section of Lyman Street was a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit because it was actually posted 30 miles an hour. And then the state finished the Lyman Street intersection. And if you turn right onto Lyman Street, or turn onto Lyman Street towards the state hospital in either direction, you immediately see a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. And so I investigated that with the chief and with, I believe, Lieutenant McLeod. I believe he's a lieutenant now. And I discovered that the speed limit on Lyman Street, the entire stretch from Route 9 to the Northborough border, is actually 40 miles an hour. That the 30-mile-an-hour posted limit was actually not correct, and that the town has no control over the speed limit. It's a state-controlled road. And the only way to get the speed limit lowered would be if they tested, you know, average speeds and along that strip. And currently, I think the average speeds are probably in excess of 40, let alone excess of 30. And my hope would be that in designing a sidewalk solution, we kept in mind, and again, I wish Tim Paris was on this because he was the one who introduced the concept of traffic calming measures, either you know, a pedestrian island at the beach, or you know, skinnying the traffic lanes so that people would naturally drive slower. But I'd like to see that incorporated in the design somehow, or at least some foresight given by the DPW and the town engineer towards future traffic calming in that area, because I don't think that 40 miles is an appropriate, 40 miles an hour is an appropriate speed limit for basically from Haskell down to Route 9. I think you've got Haskell Street is a difficult intersection. You've got Chauncey Street is it Chauncey Street there, I think, where that's a difficult intersection. You've got the beach with the parking across the street and the pickleball courts. And I just find it, you know, there's quite a few residential properties along that stretch. And I guess would like to see that we're incorporating some traffic calming in this design. So I don't know, I'll be interested to see the new design, you know, and I don't know if that's been thought of or not, but those, you know, that's what I'd like to see.
Mark, I would comment that the main reason that the original design, I don't know if you even saw it or if you recall, because I don't think it was determined yet at our meeting, That they initially proposed the sidewalk on the other side because it was going to be a lot easier job because it's level.
Right.
And the main reason it's come over to our side is indeed because of the traffic. So Chris and the DPW and you know, they were the ones that said, we don't want people having to cross the street twice.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason it came over. So I think the main impact is avoid the traffic.
Oh, and Jim, I think that's a really good change, but what I guess what I'm saying is rather than trying to cut into a berm or, you know, I mean, I guess if the tree needs to come down, it needs to come down, but
11 trees.
Yeah, well, 11 trees, but if we actually, you know, made the traffic lane skinnier, that would naturally slow down traffic. You know, the whole reason Cimarron Drive is connected to 495 was so all of that truck traffic could get on 495 there. I don't really want them bombing downhill. If you look at the grade elevation from the Northborough line to the beach, it's all downhill and it's significantly downhill, which
Yes.
naturally increases speeds. I don't think we need truck traffic coming bombing down from Northborough to Route 9 just because they don't want to, you know, go half a mile north to get to Cimarron Drive. So I just, you know, I think that's an area that the town needs to look at in the Complete Streets program.
I agree.
And you're not necessarily gonna incorporate a complete solution at this time, but you know, I'm hoping that some thought is being given to that in this design, and so we're not, you know, ripping things out in a few years that, or we're not choosing not to do something because we have a new site, right? But I'd like to see that some foresight given it. So again,
One interesting point is
everybody else agrees with that. I mean, it's not, traffic isn't really my expertise, although I'm in traffic more than probably anyone else. But you know, I just you know, I'd like to hear, you know, I guess the engineers and DPW director's thoughts on that.
Mark, through you as the chair, I could ask the Public Works Director and the town engineer to take a look at that and provide either comment at the next meeting or a memo to the board about their sense of that. It's certainly worth asking. And it may be that because this is an arterial under control of the state as a truck route, it's not possible. But I do agree with you that when you narrow the field of vision, speed drops. When you improve the road surface and you widen the field of vision, speed goes up. Even improving pavement causes speed to rise. So we can ask the question, it could inform the sidewalk design.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with the arterial streets and what we can and can't do. I know we can't change the speed limit, but I would think that if the town wanted to improve the road, i.e. put in a pedestrian island or even put in, I mean, I don't know, a traffic circle at Haskell, you know, which is a very tough, I mean, we see a lot of commuter traffic go through that intersection. Same with Chauncey. You know, I've taken Oak Street down to Chauncey to get to this, you know, the state hospital, and I've had to sit for quite some time to try and get onto Lyman Street. And you know, I just think there's future improvements we have to think about there. And I don't know if the state can tell us that we can't make a road skinnier or put in a pedestrian island or, you know, put in a side path, which might be something we have to do for the bike trail someday. I'm sorry, the multi-use trail someday. So, you know, these are things I just want to know that we're thinking ahead on these things and not just taking what Pulte wants to give us, but we're coming up with a design that will incorporate you know, future planning in that area. So I think that's enough said. And I, Jim, if you could communicate some of that to the DPW director and the town engineer and get their thoughts either in writing or ask them to respond, come to the next meeting or the meeting.
Will do.
Yeah. All right.
Mark,
Yeah.
one
Jim.
quick comment there. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but they've never taken, heading back towards the beach,
Mhm.
they've never taken down the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. So it's, as you're coming from Haskell towards the beach, just as you pass my property,
Yep.
the posted speed limit is 30, even though I know it's
What I
supposed to be
found
40.
out, Jim, if you get a ticket going 40, you just appeal it. You can't.
Right,
No,
but it
it's under
does,
that.
I think that 30-mile-an-hour sign, that direction does slow people down,
Yeah.
even though it's not correct. So that's positive. I think they just,
No, I agree. I think it is positive, but I've also seen people come down that hill. And in fact,
oh,
when I
believe me,
investigated this,
pulling out of my driveway is a risky proposition.
yeah, I mean, the trucks in particular come down that hill at a pretty high rate of speed, and gravity on an 18-wheeler is a
Yep.
powerful force. And so I just would like, again, to see if we can
Ideas.
make that safer and maybe less attractive for some of those trucks. The way to get the speed limit changed is if if they monitor traffic for a period of time, 7 days or whatever, and the average speed is 30 or 35, then they'll reduce the speed limit. So right now, I don't think that we might see the speed limit go up to 50 if they did that. So
Exactly.
I don't want to ask the state to do that. And certainly it's not our role to ask them. I think that would have to come from the Board of Selectmen. But I just would like to see that this particular sidewalk that's being installed incorporates some foresight towards traffic calming. Okay, I think I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I feel strongly about it. Again, why don't we move on unless there's other questions on the sidewalk? Okay. So I believe we have somebody from Rugged Trails on the call. Is Karen?
I am. Yep, I'm Karen Keegan from Guaranteed
All right.
Builders.
So the next agenda item is a review and consideration of the preliminary residential subdivision plan for Rugged Trails at 228 Ruggles Street. And Karen, why don't you start your presentation?
I'm asking for a continuance this evening until your next meeting in September, on September 15th. I've sent some emails over to Jim Robbins today asking for an extension on the 30 days. I've sent him that extension, and I've asked him to extend the meeting until the 15th. We had a meeting with all the department heads, or I should say I had a meeting with all the department heads, and then we went over all their comments, and we just have not had time to address all their comments at this time. So I'm looking for a little bit more time to address all of their comments before we submit another set of plans with most of their, if not all of their comments addressed. I've also filed for a demo permit, Hazel, so I should be getting something from the building department to give to the historical commission. So hopefully I can get on their meeting by the 16th of September. So the process is moving forward. We're just trying to address the comments from all the department heads at this time.
Any questions for actually Jim Robbins? Do you have any comments on this?
Thank you, Karen. And right now, Kristen is showing your letter. Thank you very much for that request for extension. So just to be clear, then Karen, you're intending to delay your presentation until the meeting of September 15th?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that okay?
It is okay, as long as the board is fine with that. There's no reason. If they grant your extension, which I recommend that you do, then you can delay your presentation till the 15th.
Okay.
So any questions from the board on that?
I think my major question was, were there any particular flags on this, Jim, that came up with the department heads? Or Karen, that maybe we could get a little lead in on?
Well, some of the head department heads, conservation wanted wetland flags reflagged. They wanted additional wetland flags off the property flagged. Those have been done. They just need to be shown on the plan. That has not been done as of yet. There were a couple of comments like mailboxes. The fire department wanted a two-scale turnaround. Lights at the intersection, lights at the end of the driveways, and to take a look at Lot 1's configuration. So those were the comments that they had that we're addressing at this time.
That's accurate.
Any other questions from the board then?
No, Mark.
Okay. I will make a motion to extend the preliminary, I'm sorry, I have to get back to my motion to extend the preliminary residential subdivision plan to, I'm sorry, September 30th.
Second.
Okay. Jim, is that motion adequate?
I didn't hear it all, but it sounded like you made a motion to extend the preliminary plan review and decision date to September 30th.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to say extend the preliminary residential subdivision plan review and decision date to September 30th.
Yes.
Okay. And Hazel, you're okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Any discussion of that motion? Okay. Again, we'll do a roll call. Hazel, how do you vote?
Yes to extend.
Okay. Tim?
Yes.
Okay. Jim Ball?
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well to extend. So Karen, we'll put you on the agenda for the 15th, and we'll see you then.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. So next item on the agenda is a discussion on the Otis Street corridor study. I'm going to turn to Jim Robbins for this. Jim, you want to start and give us some updates?
Yes, thank you, Jim Robbins, Town Planner. So as you know, part of the approval of the site plan review for the Amazon project at 50 Otis Street was that the developer, Amazon, and Atlantic Management as the property owner, would undertake a corridor traffic study and land use study at the direction of the town. About 6 weeks ago, we had our preliminary kickoff for the scoping of that corridor study. That meeting was attended by various department heads, including all the department heads that are on our general review. And that consists of police and fire, Department of Public Works, town engineer, conservation, Board of Health, the assessors, the planning board. And we had other departments there as well. The selectman's office was represented. And we put together ideas. The first session was brainstorming ideas. What was important to look at within the corridor? So obviously we need a background study. We need to know what development has occurred within the last 2 years, what development is within the permitting pipeline, and what development we anticipate, even through the possibility of future land development based on zoning for the land uses in the Otis Street corridor. We extend the study area down Smith Parkway to the train station and further on to the residential subdivisions at the corner of Smith Parkway and Gleason Street. We also extend the corridor down to the intersection with Fisher Street. The study would include the phasing of the current traffic signals at both the intersection of Otis Street with Route 9 and Otis Street with Smith Parkway. So the corridor study would include the width of Otis Street, any additional planned uses and driveway curb cuts on Otis Street, as well as its signalized intersections. Also, as input would be the multi-use trail as it comes from Sasakis Drive onto Otis Street, and then the multi-use trail as it is planned on the Hakamaka property as it extends to the commuter rail station, as well as commuter traffic and turning motions made on Smith Parkway associated with the commuter rail station. The applicant was very receptive to that and has committed $75,000 to the corridor study itself. We then committed our ideas to writing. They were circulated back to the group, and the draft of that components for the scope have been submitted to the consultant that has been hired and will be paid for solely by the applicant, and that's Mdm Traffic Consulting. I know the board is familiar with Mdm. They have done many studies on behalf of the town before, not the least of which was Bay State Commons, the intersection of Lyman Street and Route 9 most recently within the last 2 years. They're very familiar with the town. I think they will do a very good job. Bob Miso is one of the principals at MDM. He's the first M in MDM, Bob Miso. He will personally be heading up the study. I've had multiple discussions with him about Otis Street. They've already begun the data collection on development in the corridor. I don't expect to see a finished study within the next 2 months, but I do expect it to be finished before the end of the year. One of the things that I recommended they look at is the driveway from Speedway Plaza and the possibility of future development of the old Barbarian Farm and how we might create a calming, traffic calming device there. It might even be a roundabout that would include creating mitigation for the target driveway, the driveway at 76 Otis Street, which you know is where the Mexican restaurant is in the Verizon store, as well as the gymnastics use that is next door. Because as you know, it's impossible to make a left-hand turn out of those driveways at lunchtime or in the evening. So we need to find an alternate way for them to get into the flow of traffic and a safer way to allow them to merge onto Otis Street. So those are just some ideas. I will have something for you once the draft is ready from the consultants.
All right, any questions from the board for Jim on that? Nothing from Jim. Nothing. Hazel, Tim?
No.
No. Kim? Anything?
No.
Sorry, I can't see you. I can only see some of you guys. So. I'm all set on that as well. I'm looking forward to seeing the progress and final results. So
For sure.
all right. So moving on to our next agenda item, an update on the 31-30 Eli Whitney Street property and the Open Space Committee and Walkup Robinson Trust action. I believe you're all aware that the town has entered into a purchase and sale agreement to purchase 31-33 Lyman Street, which is 66 acres of land. It's this
Eli Whitney.
Eli Whitney, Mark, you said Lyman.
Lyman, yeah, isn't that your
I will
house?
sell you my property for 2.6 million.
Yeah, well, it's 2.3 million, but I'm sure you'd sell it for that too. So actually, your place is pretty nice, so it might be worth it. Anyway, that includes this yellow 4.7 acre parcel, which is intended to be in the custody of the Board of Selectmen, while the remaining parcel is this triangular kind of shape. I don't know if it's
Maybe diamond.
diamond shaped or anyway, rhombus. Is that the right? All right. So the point is that most of the land will be in conservation, with 4.7 acres proposed to be in the custody of the Board of Selectmen. so that there's some flexibility with the trailhead and parking and any municipal needs that might be there. Last week, the Open Space Committee and the Walk of Robinson Trust met to make a recommendation to town meeting, and both committees voted unanimously to take, well, separate votes. So the Open Space voted unanimously to take $750,000 from the Open Space Fund, and Walk Up Robinson voted to recommend that the town take $750,000 from the Walk Up Robinson Trust account. So a total of $1.5 million, and the remainder of the sale price would come out of the sale of real estate account. So that was a successful recommendation. And there will be a special town meeting in September at a date that has not been determined, but I'm hoping I believe the Board of Selectmen met earlier tonight, or are actually meeting as we speak, and so hopefully we'll hear a specific date on the special town meeting. So, any questions about that? Jim Robbins, do you have any comments?
No, thank you, Mark. I think that I'll just talk about the property a little bit. I have no comments on the information you provide us. Thank you. I think a lot of people don't realize that we have multiple funds from which we're able to pay for open space land, particularly when a piece of property like this comes up. It's nice to be prepared. So I'm grateful to the town for the foresight. It's been, the entirety of the time that I've been in Westborough, this property has been on the market. So it's nice to see it finally coming off into the hands of the town. And I think it's also a good idea, the way the plan is drawn, to have the frontage be reserved for municipal purposes. I think that's good foresight. I mean, this could eventually just be parking for the open space, or it could be nothing, who knows. The property itself has some challenges, as you know, but it's a beautiful piece of land. It's a former farm. There are wetlands through the center of the site, which means that it has an ecosystem for wildlife. So it's a good piece of property to protect. Additionally, I don't know if Kristen, you have a cursor that you could run from the top of the property where it says 4.72 acres to the rear of the property on the bottom left. There's a parcel right there, thank you, Kristen, that the town already owns that will connect to this. That could be parking for the open space. And it has access to the road there. So it's an easy pull off that would leave the J-Prey property without ever having to be disturbed if we created parking on the adjacent town property. So this is a linking property, which is good for us. It's the biggest single piece of land available for open space for the town. So we're taking off a large portion from the development rolls, and it's a good move, even if the town only bought it to defer development costs down the road. Because if this were homes, you know what the cost is to educate children in the school system. It's a wise move just on that intention alone. But I think for open space purposes, it's kind of a jewel going forward. It's a wise move. So smart move. Thank you, Mark, for sitting on both those committees and having a vote to make this happen.
Mark, do you know what that 15-acre piece next to it is? And I'm looking at the map here to the right. Is that a vacant piece, that 15-acre piece? Do you know what that is?
That's that parcel on the right is the McElrath property, and that actually was for sale as well at one point. It's a privately owned parcel that is not Chapter 61 protected. And that's about all I know.
Okay.
Yeah. So just so you know, if you go further down to those parcels, even further south, that say, I don't know if I can't read the numbers on them. I'm sorry. There's two parcels at the southern edge of this parcel that are also town owned. You have to zoom back out. But Kristen,
Oh, that 4-acre, both of them, the 4-acre pieces?
so this 4.29 or 4.23 that's L1A, that's also town owned. The one to the left of that, which is kind of a weird shape, but ends up curving down towards Adam Street. You can't see all of it in this. That's 16 acres. Well, that's town owned. So
Mark, you're coming in jumbled all of a sudden for some reason.
okay, well, I probably have too many things going on, but so if you look at those three parcels that the town already owns and you add the 66 acres into it, it's a pretty large block of contiguous open space that we're talking about. So I think that's an important
Amazing.
feature to this.
You muted yourself, Mark.
Well, that's why. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Better.
Right. All right. So any other questions on that purchase? As soon as I hear about the date for the town meeting, I will circulate that.
Mark, quick question. Is it mostly wooded or is there a fair amount of open space back there? What's the property like?
I'd say it's mostly wooded, but there is an old cart path that goes pretty deep into the property, and I think the intention is to establish some walking trails through the property. And again, we'll worry about that once we own it.
Okay, great.
I can give you a little more information on that if you would zoom out, Kristen, so we can see the entire parcel. So I've walked the property. It's been several years, but if you look at the yellow parcel of 4.72 acres that the town would break off, alongside of that, it shares a common side lot line with a square property that was broken off from this as a single house lot. Right along that property line, right there, there is a cart path that comes right down into the center of the parcel. And it extends to almost to the rear of the parcel, over a wetland, and there's a farmer's crossing there. It's kind of a stone culvert. Goes to the upland area in the rear. There are significant rock outcroppings, large pieces of ledge that were left by the glacier, actually quite significant pieces. They're large. And then the land is high and dry with some low bush blueberry. There's almost no invasive species on the property, which is quite unusual. So there's no Japanese knotweed, there's no honeysuckle, there's no multiflora rose, or if there is, it's so sparse that you don't see it. Even going to the back of the property and joining up with the town-owned land at the rear that I was initially talking about, there are some walking trails that have been cut in by the property owners that could be used initially as trailblazes, but once the town owns it, I'm sure that they'll develop a much better trail system to connect the town parcels so that you have a large walking area. It's very nice land.
All right, any other questions? No.
Who originally owned that land? What was the?
Well, the Daypray family has owned that land for a long time. I don't know, when you say originally, I haven't researched the history of that.
Okay.
It goes back to Eli Whitney's family.
No, yeah, that is true, yes. I do know that. All right. Why don't we move on to the last item, which is the master plan update. And again, I'll ask Jim Robbins to address the board on that.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Jim Robbins, town planner. So I'm going to segue to the master plan. This evening, the Board of Selectmen held the public hearing for the municipal vulnerability plan, preparedness plan. MVP stands for Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness. And we began working on this 6 or 7 months ago. And just before the COVID outbreak in late February, we held a public scoping session, which I say public, that's probably a misnomer. It was a by invitation scoping session, which included members of the public that serve on various town committees, including Sustainable Westborough. But all departments were invited to the meeting, some of the local community groups, as well as our surrounding towns, planning boards and conservation commissions were invited to talk about the environment and the climate change forces that will be exerted on the town as challenges going forward. We looked at everything from catastrophic weather events to existing natural resources, how we would protect our resources, including Sandra Pond, our public drinking water supply, and our recreational resources in the event of climate change or temperature, storm events like hurricanes or flooding, as well as any earth changes like an earthquake would pose upon the town, and how we would be prepared in the event of those natural disasters. And we propose a plan. It's only a proposal. At this point, it's a draft that will be circulated to town departments. Well, this evening, the selectmen had a presentation from CMRPC, that's the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, who is preparing the plan for the town. They gave a presentation, and the presentation talked about the elements of the plan as well as potential recommendations going forward. The next step will be its inclusion as data input to the town's master plan, hence the discussion on our master plan. So the MVP plan will be given to the Climate Change and Sustainability Subcommittee of the master plan as input, because that subcommittee is going to talk about very similar subject, how we can be prepared for climate change and how we can be resilient as a community going forward. And as you know, the master plan has taken a break as a result of the stress on the community and public gathering over the summer. We've decided that there would be no further work on the master plan, and we will resume in September. The leadership group, of which myself and Hazel are a member of the master plan's overall leadership group, together with Lester Hensley, we meet with the consultants twice a month, and the consultants will be sending out what we're calling the baseline overall report for the master plan committee to review and report back in September. We will have another kickoff meeting just to kind of regroup and reset our mindset to get back into the planning in September. It will probably be on a Monday or a Thursday night, the week of the 14th. Our next planning board meeting is on the 15th. It won't be on the 15th to try and avoid conflicts with the selectmen as well as the planning board. We will look for an off night. It will probably be the Thursday of that week, but we're consulting with other town boards to make sure we don't conflict, say, with the school committee or with the Board of Finance, the Finance Committee's meeting, Advisory Finance Committee, so that we can have good attendance at this as though it were a second kickoff to the plan. Stay tuned.
Okay, Mark, let me just, suddenly something occurred to me. I know it's not on the agenda, but the town is setting up a Community Development Act Advisory Study Group. And I would think that the planning board probably should have a representative on that. Jim, did you get something on that?
Hazel, it's a Community Preservation Act.
Right, yeah, sorry,
committee.
yeah.
So I was appointed the open space representative, and part of that was that I could also represent the planning board on that.
Great.
They do have room, the Board of Selectmen did, they have room for 3 residents, and they did express, if the open space, if they didn't get a planning board member from one of the other committees, that they would hope to use one of the resident slots for a planning board member, but, certainly if anyone here would like to serve on that committee, we encourage them to appoint you to the resident slots.
Mark, we're losing you again.
All right, Jim Robbins, can you summarize that for me?
Sure. So what Mark is saying is that because he's the open space representative, he can double as the planning board representative, and
Perfect.
there would still be a slot, however, on the task force, so that if a member of this board, other than Mark, wanted to fill that slot, they could, because it was intended for the planning board. However, if not, they would use it to recruit a member from the community at large.
Good idea.
And
So, again, Hazel, if you or Jim Ball wants to add another meeting, Tim Kaler, I think you would actually be really good at that, given your experience on Block Island and on the land trust. So I would encourage you to get involved with that. But it would be using one of those resident slots. So just to be aware of that.
Okay, Mark.
Okay. All right. So any other questions on the master plan update that Jim Robbins gave us? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Jim Ball for the 7/21 meeting minutes.
Thank you, Mark. I believe it's actually a couple of weeks ago now that Kristen sent us all those 7/21 meeting minutes and gave us an opportunity to make any comments. And so I'd like to move that we approve those minutes and just confirm that everyone had a chance to review them and did not have any further comments beyond what they may have offered to Kristen.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any questions on that from anyone?
All right. No questions from
Nope.
me. You want to do a roll call vote again? Jim Ball?
Want me to do that, Mark? Sure. Mark?
Yeah, I'll just do it. Jim.
Go ahead, Mark. That'd be great.
How do you
Yes,
vote?
I approve.
Tim Kaler?
Yeah, approve the minutes from the 7/21 meeting, Mark.
Hazel?
Yes for approval.
Okay, and I vote yes to approve as well.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
That completes the agenda. Is there any other new business or anything else we need to do? Any other updates you want to give us, Jim Robbins?
Thank you, Mark. No, just to be thinking about the master plan and to be telling your neighbors and anyone that you think ought to be directed to the master plan webpage. You can access it from the town webpage. We're looking for comments on memories of Westborough. If you have a story, it's called the storyboard. So if you have a memory growing up in Westborough or something you would like to share, those types of things are really good for getting people to be interested in the plan and read. So you might think that nobody cares about something that significantly happened in Westborough, say 10, 15 years ago, or even if in your childhood, if you grew up here. But it's those types of things that get people interested. They read a local story, an anecdote maybe. I was sharing with Kristen the other day and with Lester Hensley, and Hazel, you may have heard this too, that when I was in college and living in Connecticut, I used to come up to the Red Barn on Route 9. Some of you may remember that. Jim is smiling. He probably remembers it. Somebody might be thinking the Red Barn, oh my goodness, really?
Not that I'll admit to, Jim.
You'll admit it too. So that's the type of thing that gets people talking about the history of Westborough, how far we've come and where we would like to go in the future. So that's what I'm talking about.
Jim, I thought I went on the website today and I didn't see whether they've improved that link to the master plan. You want to check it tomorrow? I may have missed it.
Okay, thank you, Hazel. I was on the website today, but I have to say I did not go to the master plan link. I was there for something else.
Yeah, so we wanted it to be sort of a banner or something so that,
Yes,
it made it much easier for people to see.
you're right. I will write that down and call the town manager in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
I did send a request over, but I believe she was on vacation the last week, so
He was.
I can follow up on that.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen.
Right. Any other questions or updates? I'm just going to remind everyone to keep your eyes open for that special town meeting. If no
Nothing,
one-
Mark.
Go ahead, Jim, anything? No. All right. So if no one has anything else, I'm going to motion to adjourn.
Second that, Mark.
I think Hazel beat you to that, Jim.
She did. She was quick.
I'm going to
She has
just
things to do.
ask you,
Really quick on the adjournment.
all those in favor, just speak up.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, and I vote yes. That's 4-0. Have a great night, everyone, and I will see you after my vacation. Okay.
All right.
Have a
enjoy your
great vacation, Mark.
Take
Have a
care.
great vacation.
Thank you.